Life is full of bullshit, and we're here to call it out. Real talk, raw truth, and plenty of spice. Welcome to She Who Thrives.
We're your hosts, Kaytlen,
Mindi,
and Harrison. Before we start, we wanted to give a little trigger warning. On today's episode, we will be talking about suicide and mental health. Please take care of yourself while listening, and if this feels too heavy right now, it's okay to skip this one. And remember, in the U.S., you can dial 988 anytime to reach the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline.
September is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. We really put a lot of thought into this one, and we decided we would kind of take a deep dive into some of our own stories and our own struggles with how suicide and mental health has really affected our family and each of us individually. We just want to remind people that mental health is not a stigma and that you're not alone.
Suicide isn't just statistics or headlines. It's real people and real families. And I want to share a very personal story about my big brother. This is going to be a tough one for me. And it's been a tough week just thinking about it. But just bear with me. I thought I had all my tears out this week, but apparently I don't. So I lost my only brother to suicide 9 years ago. And it's been one of the hardest things that I have ever gone through. But I believe talking about it matters. And this is, like I said, going to be really hard, but I'm going to do it. So my big brother was 2.5 years older than me. He was the only boy in the family. And we always had a great bond when we were little, when we became teenagers. And then as we became young adults, even after we got married, he was best friends with my husband and I was best friends with his wife. And we traveled together. Our kids were around the same age, so they always played together. We were so much alike. He was one of my best friends. And he was a prankster and a jokester, and we were two peas in a pod. He loved the outdoors. He loved to hunt and fish and boat and hike. And he taught all my sons how to catch creepy crawling critters of every kind.
Unfortunately.
Yes, which they still do. I remember him taking all the boys to the river and teaching them how to catch crawdads. And his way of catching crawdads was to stick his finger under the rocks and let the crawdads bite, pinch on there, and pull them out. So, yeah, he was a little bit of a psycho, but he was so much fun. And my kids' biological dad passed away when they were pretty young. My twins had just turned 2 at the time, and Kate was 9, Chasen was 6, and my brother filled that gap. Their dad was exactly like him, and he took on that role. And he has a little boy that's the same age as my twins, and so they spent a lot of time with him. My brother was very successful. He owned his own business and was a millionaire, and like I said, was a really outdoors person. Wasn't one that just liked to sit around. He had a disease called Ehlers-Danlos, which when I explain it to people, it's a lack of collagen. So instead of like your tendons just stretching, his would snap instead. So he had multiple surgeries over the years on every joint, 25 to 30-ish surgeries. And he still would try and do everything. He did a little too much, and I think that's why a lot of the surgeries happened, because he just wouldn't slow down. The last surgery he had, he got a thing called CRPS, and that's complex regional pain syndrome. And they actually call that the suicide disease because it is so intense and it leaves you in so much pain all the time. Just to walk from his bed to the kitchen chair or the living room chair, he would just be sweating profusely because he would be in so much pain, everything just firing and hurting. He had a wife. He had his 3 kids. He also has twins, and then he has a younger boy. And he lost everything, his career. He couldn't work anymore, couldn't provide for his family, couldn't do the things that he loved. And that took a huge toll on him. And he felt like he was a burden. His wife had to go to work. She was always a stay-at-home mom. She had to get a job to provide for their family. Ugh, I really thought I had all my tears out. He talked about suicide often. And we would always talk to him and tell him, that's not the way out. That's not the thing to do. You can't leave all of us. You can't leave your wife and kids. And now my nose is running. I don't even have a tissue. Sorry. He had a life insurance policy that was enough, sufficient. And I guess he felt like that was his way of taking care of his family. On the day he passed away, my twins were over at his house playing with the boys, and we didn't live that far apart from each other. And they rode their bikes to my house after they had been to his house, and his son came as well. I got a phone call from my mom not too long after they had been there. And she told me that my nephew, who is a detective for the police department here, had called her. And my brother had called dispatch and told them where he was and what he was going to do. And he apologized to the dispatch lady, told her he was sorry that she had to be the one to take this call. But she couldn't talk him out of it. He just wanted her to know where he was so that he could be found. And he also told them to contact my nephew first because he wanted my nephew to be the one to tell my parents. She talked to him for a while. My oldest sisters listened to the call. It's never been something that I wanted to listen to. She said, they talked for quite a while, and he just told her, I'm sorry, I have made up my mind. There's no talking me out of this, and kept apologizing to her. And he ended up hanging up on her, and then he called her back and told her, I have videos that I've left on my phone for my family, and I just wanted to make sure that they were found. And he had driven out to a place that he loved. That meant a lot to him and my first husband. And he shot himself. When my mom called me, my husband was at work. And I could tell something was wrong when she called. Like I said, my twins and his son were at the house. They were upstairs playing. So I went to the garage because I could tell something was wrong. And she told me that my nephew had called her and what my brother had said. And I'm sorry. I have snot everywhere. I knew this was going to be raw, but I didn't know it was going to be snot raw.
I'll go get you.
My mom had kept calling his phone and leaving him voicemails, begging and pleading for him to not do this. She said, Mindi, it's not for sure yet. They're headed out there to check, but it's not for sure. It's not for sure. And when she told me, I know this is going to sound crazy to some people, I hope those are tears and not snot. On
They
me.
are. I watched them fall.
But me and my mom have always had an intuition, I guess you can say. It's not something that I talk about. But anyway, when my mom was talking to me about it, I said, Mom, it's done. I literally saw him with my first husband. And they were both so happy. And I said, it's done. He did it. He wouldn't be one to call and not go through with what he said. They did go out there. They found him. They called. I was a mess. I called Adam. I couldn't even explain to my husband what I was saying because I was crying so hard. He actually had to hang up on me and call my mom. And he immediately came home. And I sat in the garage and just tried to muster up any energy I could to go inside and pretend like nothing had happened. I remember coming inside and the boys and my nephew coming downstairs and saying, Mom, what's wrong? Something looks wrong, And I said, I just have a really bad bellyache. I just need to go in the room. My dad called and wanted me and my husband to go with him to tell my sister-in-law at her work. And I remember driving over there. It's sitting in the parking lot waiting for her to come out. And her seeing me and Adam and having a huge smile on her face. And then seeing my dad in his vehicle. And all the color just drained from her face. She knew. I remember walking over to her. We all gave her a big hug, and my dad told her, he's gone. He did it. He's gone. And her just saying, no. I talked to him on my lunch break. No. I'd drive home with her in the back of our car and just holding her. It's like it's been 9 years, but I can remember it like it was yesterday. And for a while, I was so mad at him too. Because we were supposed to grow old together. We were supposed to do so much. But I knew why he did it. I knew that was his way of taking care of his family. This is something that has completely changed our family. We have a very, very close-knit family. And I thank God for that because I see so many families that don't have what we have. My mom and dad are some of the toughest people I have ever met. And watching them go through this, I think as much as it hurt me as my sibling, like I can't imagine being the parent, and his kids and his wife. It's horrible. It's something that doesn't just affect the person that takes their life. It affects everybody for the rest of their lives. I have learned how to cope with it for the most part, but the pain has never gone away. Ever. I can hear songs on the radio that trigger me. Hunting season, which we're going through right now, is horrible. Certain places that I go to, I see signs of him everywhere. The loss of my brother is something that I will carry forever, but I feel like if sharing this story helps even one person feel less alone, or one family start a conversation that maybe will help avoid this, then his life and his pain still have purpose. And if you're struggling, please reach out. You're never a burden. He was never a burden. None of us ever felt like he was a burden. And I understand that he did. but your family doesn't feel that way and they need you. I can't stress enough what this has done to our family. And yes, it has made us even closer, but I feel like just the little things, we all remember the last time we got together with him. It was at Easter, and my mom's birthday was in March, and he waited till after my mom's birthday to do this. It was a few days after my mom's birthday, but now we're left with the memories and the pictures, as I've been thinking about how best to do this and how best to deliver this. I've been scrolling through pictures. I'm so thankful that we have the videos that he left. And I think how hard it must have been for him to be sitting there, knowing that these were the last words he was going to say to us, and making those videos for each of us. It's something that breaks my heart, but I also treasure. It's not something I share with people. My family has heard it, of course, but I decided that I just wanted to play a little audio of the beginning and the ending that I've clipped together of what he left me. This is what I have to do now when I want to hear his voice. And no family should ever have to do this. You're worth living. There's always help somewhere.
They didn't tell me you were going to do this. This is going to be rough.
Mindi. My little sister. Sis, I love you. Thank you for being you. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for being there for my wife. I love you. Forever.
What we're left with. That's how I have to hear his voice. And no family ever wants to have to click on a video to hear their loved one's voice. His kids have now grown up. One of them's married and has 2 kids. They're all doing their best and thriving. My sister-in-law's remarried, and we love him. But it's still so hard. And like I said, it's not just hard for me, it's hard for all of us. Kate, you lost an uncle that you loved. And I know that you've dealt with your own mental health challenges. Is that something you want to talk about?
Yeah, I wasn't prepared for that. I feel like, when he died, that changed the way that I thought about everything. Like you said, our family is, I don't think people really understand how close our family is. People could say, they have a close family, but I feel like ours is on another level. So he wasn't just another uncle. When I talk about, when I talk about the boys, being uncles to my kids or being an aunt, to my nephews, he's what I think of. Remember the last McLean interaction we had? I was pregnant with Nixon. Going over to their house and him being like, wow, Kate, you've really gained a lot of weight. Is everything okay? I was like, I'm pregnant. Didn't you know? He's like, I'm just messing with you. But it changed the way I thought about, a lot of things. I remember so many nights after just not sleeping and just trying so hard to just wrap my brain around everything. Just couldn't. I still can't sometimes. I knew when Adam called me that it was kind of weird. Just sat down, just made dinner and sat down to eat. And he called me and said, "Can you come over?" And I said, "For what?" He said, "Well, can you just come over?" And, because it was him, number one, and because of what he was saying, I just instantly knew. Nobody told me. I was a mess on the way there. I was a mess when I got to the house, and then everybody was there crying. And I was like, somebody tell me. I mean, I know, but somebody say it to me, I've struggled with my own depression and anxiety. I think kind of towards the end of that year and into 2017, anxiety that just consumed me. I'm trying to self-medicate with alcohol for a long time, which is not something that I'm super proud of. Which of course only makes it worse. But I just remember every time I was in the car, without my kids, just having to really talk to myself and talk myself out of just driving into oncoming traffic or driving into a tree or off the road. And the one thing that really kept me on this planet was my uncle, who had done it, and just seeing the effect it had on every single person in our family. I mean, especially you and the boys, but that's just what I kept in the back of my mind all the time, is I couldn't do this to everybody. I remember really reaching a breaking point, trying to talk to somebody else previously about, how I was feeling and my anxiety and not wanting to be alive, and, being told how selfish that was of me, and, it was all in my head. And if I did that, how, him and my kids would they wouldn't even mourn me. They would just hate me, and then it makes you feel.
That wasn't told to you by our family.
No. Then it just makes you feel, ashamed or scared. Well, why would I want to go talk to anybody else about this, And then reaching the breaking point, I remember pulling into the Target parking lot and calling you. I don't know if you remember, but just breaking down hysterical, like, "Mom, I don't even want to live." I don't remember, everything that was said, but just kind of telling you how I had been feeling and how bad my anxiety was, and just really not wanting to be alive. And I remember from that point forward, because, the kid's dad was working nights at that point, like you made sure I was not alone, and you had me at your house every night. And then I think you had gone out of town. You made sure Tony had me at her house every night. And I just am so grateful every day that, you and I have the relationship that we have, and we have the family that we have, that you could create that safe space. And I think that the problem so many times, mental health is, recognized more, and people with mental health issues that struggle are more accepted. It is becoming easier to talk about, but I think part of the problem is there are so many people that are not educated about it or don't know. And then we're turning to these people who aren't, and they're telling us, it's all in your head, or that's so selfish. Like, you'll get over it. And which doesn't help. It doesn't make people feel like they can talk about it, or then they feel like, it is in my head. Brecklin just my oldest. We just had a conversation in the car because I tell her and Nixon all the time, you never know what's going on behind closed doors. You never know what somebody's going through. Like, you never know what they go through at home. Just be a friend to everybody. Be kind to everybody because you never know. We had a conversation the other day and she told me how she had really been thinking about it and she wanted to open up at school a support group or, a group for kids, put on by kids so that other people could come. People who are going through things at home or struggling with mental health or just feel alone could come and just talk and just have a safe space to do that. And she's, done a lot that's made me proud, but it was really a proud moment that I feel like, that's why that we're having these talks early and that's why we're having these talks now. It's definitely a struggle, but, hopefully by talking about this, we can, again, let other people know that they're not alone. They don't ever have to be alone. There's always going to be somebody out there that will listen, that cares that you are on this planet still.
Unless you've struggled with depression, you really understand what kind of a hole people are in. I know now that mental health is everywhere, and hate me for saying this, but I believe that some people are just wackadoo and they use that as an excuse. The world is crazy right now. And you see so many people being like, blah, 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 whatever, go be a cat. Like, no. But real depression, real mental health struggles.
I feel like too, though, that even people that you would think like their life is perfect. Like, look at so many influencers. They have all the money. They have the nice house. They have a perfect family. Like, you look at them and you could think there's not a single thing that they could possibly be sad or upset about. And some of those people have the darkest thoughts and you would never even know it because it's not always just about the perfect life. Sometimes it's just the thoughts in your head that you can't even get away from.
I think with you too, a lot of yours came about from, losing your dad, then having someone that you call dad abandoning you pretty much, you not knowing where you fit in with that, to marrying somebody that was not a good marriage. I think all that contributes to, your well-being and how things went with you. You were in a dark period. But yeah, it's not something that we talk about enough. And, there is a stigma about suicide. I look at suicide totally different as an adult, obviously, and having gone through it with my brother. But I feel like that's why a lot of people don't talk about it. Like, you don't want to feel judged by other people because you have these thoughts. You don't want other people to look at you. Nobody wants people to look at them and think, she's weak. Nobody wants people to think that about them.
Right.
And so I feel like it's just brushed under the rug and not talked about. Even after my brother committed suicide, like, people don't know what to say to you. So they avoid you because it was suicide. It wasn't like he died of cancer. He killed himself. So, there's more people that are like, ooh, like, what do I do here? It doesn't need to be like that. Like, you just saying to me, I'm sorry. That's all you have to say to me, But yeah, there is a stigma behind it for sure.
I have my own unfortunate story, I guess I could say. But I'm so glad that I went through it because, one, I wouldn't be the person I am today. I probably wouldn't have met my husband. And I think you go through things so that you can help other people who are also going to go through it or have. A little backstory. My parents were divorced when I was very young. They did not have a good co-parenting relationship. We moved a ton as kids. Like each time my parent got remarried, it was like we moved from Idaho to Cedar City, then back to Idaho, then to St. George. Like it was like we were always hopping around. And I'm close with my parents now, but I feel like growing up, like I wasn't like as close to them as I am now. So during the darkest time of my life, I didn't go to either of them for help, which I wish I could have, but I didn't. And man, I don't want to cry either. There was a lot going on. I had moved out of my home with my family and moved in with somebody else at the time. And then I moved back home and I was just going through a lot. And for some reason, my body, when I'm very anxious or going through a lot, I cannot keep food down. Like there's some people when they're very depressed or whatever, they can't stop eating. I can't get myself to eat. So I was constantly just sick. Every time I'd eat, I would just throw up. And I just literally, I was like 93 pounds as a senior in high school. And so I was just so sick. And there was just thing after thing that just piled on top. And there was one thing that finally just like set me off. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do it anymore. And I feel like unless you've been like in a spot like that, you don't like truly understand like, oh, like, yeah, I've been depressed, but have you been to the point where you want to take your own life, basically? So I remember laying in bed, my cousin was over, and I had just gotten my tonsils out, I think, like a month prior. And I didn't take very many of like the pills that were given to me after the surgery, just because they made me feel so crappy. So I had like all of these pills left over and I just took them all. And I was laying in bed next to my cousin. She was asleep. And I just started like probably 30 minutes after I had already taken them, I went and got in the shower and I just cried. And then I started getting scared and thinking about like, I didn't grow up with knowing any mental health problems were in my family. I still have really never lost anyone like in my family other than like from old age. So I wasn't really familiar with like losing someone at a young age. And so I just started thinking like about my family. And I instantly regretted it. And I was like, what do I do? So I kept trying to make myself throw up. And I couldn't. The one time I actually wanted to throw up, I couldn't. So I ran downstairs and I got my mom and I said, I took all these pills and I need help. So we drove to the emergency room. And this is ironic because as we were on our way there, it was like 3:00 in the morning. And This Is My Fight song came on the radio. And I remember like listening to that song and it had like a whole new meaning to me. So I got to the hospital and of course, you know, they do all of the things to get all the pills and they talk to you, and not that they treat you like you're psycho, but you definitely don't feel normal. And I had to go through all these questionnaires about what was going on in my life. And it was just, I just remember feeling so embarrassed. I was like, I hope nobody finds out about this. This is so embarrassing. And it was kind of like swept under the rug after it happened. Like, it was just kind of like, we didn't talk about it. Like, this didn't happen. We're not going to tell anyone about it. Like, my mom had told my dad because I was living with my mom. But like, beyond that, I don't really think anyone knew. And it wasn't until, I think it was probably 2 years ago or maybe last year, I had one of my very best friends go through a really hard time in her life. And I remember seeing her go through that and think, I should probably share what I've gone through because I saw her struggling and I didn't want her to feel alone, because you feel so alone when you're in that headspace. And I wanted her to know, like, how many other people are probably going through something similar as far as, just having bad thoughts. So I ended up opening up about it on my social media for the very first time ever. And I had, when I say hundreds of people message me. And it was both healing and heartbreaking at the same time, because I felt like I was so glad that I had shared my story and like brought awareness to it, but it also was so heartbreaking to know how many people have been through that. And I think at that time too, I was like reflecting on my life. Like, I wouldn't have been married. I wouldn't have had a son because I only had one at the time. I had just barely competed in my first bodybuilding competition, and that was like a huge goal for me. And I was like, I wouldn't have accomplished any of that if it would have actually worked. So I'm so grateful to be here today and to bring awareness to it. And if you're going through it, know that you're not alone, and to talk to somebody. And if you can't talk to somebody, call the hotline, because that's always an option. I feel like sometimes you really, truly don't feel like you can go to anyone around you, whether it's family or friends, because you don't want them to constantly worry or feel like they're walking on eggshells or whatever it may be, because nobody likes to feel that way. But you matter. And I believe that there is space for every person on this earth. And I wouldn't say that it's ever something to be ashamed about, but I don't know. I don't know where to go from here.
To those of you that feel alone, please remember that you are loved, you are wanted, you are needed, and the world is better with you in it, even if you don't see that right now.
I know what it feels like to carry that weight, but I promise you it doesn't last forever. And if you're feeling that way, please reach out, because like we've said, people want you here.
I've been where you are. I didn't think I would make it, but I'm here now, and I'm so grateful that I stayed. So please hold on, because your story isn't finished yet.
It's powerful to hear how each one of us has been touched by suicide and mental health in different ways, through loss, through survival, and through our own struggles. And together it just so shows how important these conversations really are.
Even though we've had different struggles, whether it be losing someone or attempting ourselves or feeling that way, we've all struggled, and it's important to know that nobody's in this alone.
I did actually want to add something really quick. I think it's important too, as parents, to talk to your kids about these things, because like I said, like growing up, I had like no idea that any sort of like depression or mental illness even ran in my family. And now that I've gotten older, like I now know that like a lot of people in my family have struggled mentally and have depression and even take medication for depression. So I think it's very important to talk to your kids, even at a very young age, and just let them know that like you are there to help them, and that they can talk to you about these things, because it is so important. Every day you see now like suicide becoming so normal with like these 10-year-old kids. And it's just crazy to think like that is so young to be having those feelings. And I think definitely at that age, like they have no idea what they're actually doing and the impact that it will have on so many people around them.
Forever.
Yeah. But we know today's conversation was heavy, but it was real, and that's why we wanted to share it. Suicide and mental health struggles have touched each of our lives in so many different ways, and we want you to know that you are not alone. There is hope, and there is help, and there are people who care. Thanks for hanging out with us on today's episode of She Who Thrives. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with a friend. We'll be dropping new episodes every Wednesday.
Our tip of the week this week is simple but powerful. Check in on someone you love. Like we said earlier, sometimes the strongest people are those that are carrying the heaviest burdens, and one conversation can change a life. Don't be afraid to start it. Once again, if you're in the US, you can dial 988 anytime to connect with the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Together, we can break the silence and choose to thrive.
We'll see you next Wednesday with a brand new episode. Until then, please remember, no matter where you're at in life, what you're doing, do it to the best of your ability, and always strive to thrive.